Hello, everybody. So today we're going to be going over a demo for Premiere. Finally, going to get this one up. This is the multicam workspaces demo where we will look at creating a new workspace. Those of you who have worked in Premiere, you'll know that a multicam is not a workspace that comes as part of the presets. It's not an automatically generated one, so we have to make it. So this is a good demo. Not only just for the multicam, but also to help you understand how you can manipulate your own workspaces. And also as you get your own account, these workspaces can then sync with your Creative Cloud account. So it's not necessarily tied to your computer, but it'll be tied to that personal account. Again, this is why we say when you get your personal account, because you don't want to tie something like this to your Valley or your school account, because the once that account goes away, all of the workspaces that you would have generated go away. So that's why this is something that'll work for when you have your own business or personal accounts. But very, very useful either way. The workspaces are completely customizable, which is really nice. So that you can create workspaces that work across multiple screens even. So what that means is if you have, even on a laptop, now you can have, now you have laptops that support not just one external display, but 2 and even 3 displays, especially if you get the Macs. I know those out of the box will do that. Or even if you have a desktop computer, desktops today also come with multi display support out of the box. So you can have yourself 2 displays, and editing with 2 displays is pretty phenomenal. And once you do that, it's hard to go back. It really is. For some of you, I've already talked to how I myself, I've been a multi-display editor for years. And even now I have I've mostly been editing on desktop, but I recently, or this year, got upgraded my laptop after 11 years. So it was a while. Even my desktop, I mean, the desktop I'm editing on is a 12-year-old desktop, but it can edit 1080 just fine. And so for 4K, the way I always got around that problem is I just created proxies. Again, this is why I've given you guys the demos on proxies, because they're very, very important. I will go over it one more time again today, because it is useful, especially if you are editing on a Google Chrome. You never know what situation you're going to find yourself in, especially coming out of school or going into another school environment where you're working on machines that may be a bit underpowered. And this is why proxies are very important, because they do allow you to stay current, or ability to work on current codecs or 4K environments on older devices, or devices that have more of an entry-level graphics card, or not as beefy, because you'll be able to create the proxies and edit the proxies, but then export out in those higher resolutions. So very important workflow, very, very useful. I know myself, I found it useful over the years. So I know you're looking at my screen. I don't even know if you're looking at a screen right now. I think you are. But for today, we're going to be focusing on Premiere. That's why I really didn't have it up and running yet. Let's go and launch that as I keep my explanations. This particular demo is we're not really going to be going in and out of Premiere this time, but because we're going to be doing all those workflows, it's just easier to do it the way we're doing it today. And again, not worrying about my face, because you don't need to look at that anyways. And it's I want to optimize my video sharing because of the multicam. So the way we start off is typical new project. So I'm going to make a new project here, and I'm just going to call this one multicam demo. What multi? I swear I need glasses. Multicam demo location. Well, I'm going to put this. If you see my desktop, I already have a folder that I've pre-made. Desktop, multicam demo, and then I'm going to put it inside of my Premiere Pro folder and choose. I already have my video files here, and just to show this to you too, I've already gone ahead and created standard definition versions of these. And I did that by using the media cleaner. So I just dragged and dropped my files in media cleaner, used the drop down menus, and just created what were called high quality SD uh, files in 480. Remember, I'm giving you guys everything in standard def just to help with the downloading, because I mean, there are problems. I know with some bandwidth, I know this way the files will be smaller, and I could just throw them up on Canvas. We don't have to go to any other servers, G drives, whatnot. I want to keep it as simple as possible. So let's just go ahead and choose that first Premiere Pro. I'm going to choose on that. Now remember, we're just going from top to bottom. But before I move on, renderer. Remember, this is very important for all of you. Make sure you're choosing metal. Don't just leave it on your software engine, because that's the default. So again, remind you, keep doing that. Scratch disks may not be a problem now, but remember, whenever you have a job and you get hired and maybe you're working on a shared computer, just make sure everything is same as project. Ingest settings. Here's where we go. We hit ingest. We click on copy and we change that to say create proxy. And then from here we can choose our preset. Personally, because we're doing, if I'm creating a proxy, it just means that I'm working on an older machine, because my machines are 10 years old. I always do low resolution. You could do medium or high even. All of those would be better than, working in a pure 4K environment in the raw file. But you can also create ProRes. These are really good as well. ProRes files, those are Apple. Cineform and DN, but I mean, any one of these is good. I probably would choose that. Then we do the destination. We click on that. I always like to do choose location. So this is going to show me the path where I save my Premiere Pro. So I already have my Premiere Pro here, and again, that's Ofrendas here is inside of Premiere Pro. So I can create new folder, and I will just do proxies like that. Create, and this way all my proxies will go in here. This is again all about organization. That's all I'm doing. And I hit choose, and there we go. Now all of my my files that will be optimized for work on my machine that might be less than capable, they'll go in here. So I'm gonna uncheck this, because I already have those files in SD. I already made them, so they're fine. I don't need that, but if you just leave that and then we click OK. I just undid that. I just like to come back to make sure everything is like I want it. Perfect. And then I click OK. Now I'm going to get my standard window. Let me bring this down so I can see. Here we go. Perfect. Okay. I always like to go into assembly. And again, just to remind you all, under learning, remember, if any of you have questions, you have with Premiere when you download it, all these tutorials and all of these other demos here. So feel free to go over those. They might go over some of the content using steps that are different than the ones I'm showing you. Not to say what I'm doing is wrong, it's just different. In this case, I'll share with you one of the old adages that we say in the digital arts: everything from Premiere, Photoshop, Dreamweaver. Some of you are, what's Dreamweaver? That's what we used to use to edit websites with. But any of those apps, we always say, if you get 5 people that consider themselves expert in a digital app of some kind, like Photoshop, Premiere, if you ask 5 different experts how to do a technique like multicam, typically you'll get 5 different answers. Or how do you create this mask effect? You'll get different answers, because some of them have figured out ways to do it using their own little hacks. Some of them have, I think, 80% of people are just saying, well, YouTube tutorials. There's so many of them out there. So you can do that. And then the rest will be say, well, I took a class. So for you guys, some people will say, I took a class. I always, for me, I always start in assembly, at least when I just bring in my content. So let's do that. We'll start in assembly, and I'm going to bring in my SD footage. So remember, I've showed you guys drag and drop, and I've shown you media browser. For this particular project, let's stick with media browser. So this is typically what it would look like here, just to show it to you. We'd be in this kind of environment, local drives. with like Macintosh HD as an example, or if you're on a PC, it'll probably say C drive. Go to your main user account. For the Mac, it's a little house, and then you'll get your breakdown of your desktop and all of your organizational folders from documents, pictures, movies, music, your public folders, applications, downloads, etc. So I'm going to select desktop because that's where I have my folders, and I'll just show it to you here. I'll scoot it over. So the next one I have here, and then the current one is multicam demo. So that's what we're going to use just to show it to you guys. So I'm going to go multicam demo. Here's the folder we saved our Premiere profile last time. Perfect. There's the proxies folder I made. It's empty because I didn't do anything but ofrendas. Here are the old files, and I did have a combinations of MOVs, MP4s, and MTS, but we're not going to mess with that. I'll just show you. Here's what we're going to be working with, MP4s, and you're going to have something similar on your download. So I'm just going to bring in this SD folder because it has all my content inside, and I can rename that. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's go here. Right click on that and choose import, and that's going to bring in my files. There they are, and right away I'm just going to change that to say video, so I know that's what's inside. So if I open that up, I click on the disclosure triangle or disclosure arrow, and here are my 4 files. So if I double click the first one, it's I can see this shot. This is my camera 1. Double click the second one. This is my camera 2. This is the handheld. And then my camera 3. Well, you notice that the color is a little bit different because we were using Sony's and Nikon's. So we could even change those names right now if we want. So I could call this Cam 1. This is handheld, so I can even call this handheld, but let's just keep it simple. Cam 2. And what should we name the third one? I don't know about you, but I like keeping things simple. Cam 3. That's what I would suggest for you all to do the same thing. You don't need the extensions. So those are the .mp4. I can delete that. I don't need it because those extensions are for the operating system. Remember here, once we're in Premiere, these are just naming conventions. They're more tags and metadata. So you don't need to worry about the .mp4. This is just useful for those of you that like to see it so you can quickly glance at it and recognize it, the file for what it is. But remember, you can also just look at these little icons. These little icons tell you what kind of a file you're working with. So in this case, the purple is video and the green is audio. So this tells us, this is letting us know that these are video and audio video clips. So here we go, 1, 2, and 3. I also like doing this because you can pick which one's going to be your main audio source. And the way multicam works is the very first file that you choose is going to be the one that we choose for audio. So I would suggest just using number 1, and I believe the demo files I provided for you, you'll use number 1. But I'll leave that up to you. You can choose whatever audio file you want, especially the way I'm going to show it to you. It's going to default, or Premiere just defaults to the first one you've selected. So in this case, I'm going to choose 1, and then I'm going to hold down my control key on the PC, command key on the Mac, number 2 and number 3. We'll right click, and then I'm going to choose create multi-camera source sequence. So it's a little bit different in terms of the language, if you notice, because it's got this source sequence. Of course, we're not making the sequence just yet. What we're doing now is we're making the reference file for Premiere so that it knows that when we make the sequence, it's got more than one video file attached to it. It's going to have multiple video files attached to it. And this way we can then create our multicam workspace from that. And it'll be able to read it and understand it. So let's go ahead and do that. And here's the window. So it's going to ask us, I'm going to put the default so you can see how it was. Video clip name. So, I mean, we can leave that alone. And so what we want to do now is make a name here. So let's just call this multicam. I'm calling it multicam demo. And what I would suggest for you guys is, because this is going to be what you make your sequence from, And because many of you might forget to name this, it's common. 90% of students do this. So your name, I would recommend, and maybe even at this point, project 3, because that's what I want you to name this particular project. So this would let you get ahead. And that's what, so again, this is what it's going to be tagged as. Synchronized point. Now, this is how uh, Adobe is going to look at your files and decide or figure out how to synchronize them. And back in the day, we used to use a software called Videoize or Visualize, and the that particular application would allow you to create sync points using audio waveforms. Well, that technology has now been integrated, and the three main editors, Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, and Avid, they all now use audio waveforms. Although Avid, I think Avid does it. Actually, Avid's the only one I'm not quite sure, but I think it does. And for those of you using DaVinci Resolve, I believe it does as well. So we also have other options. We can eyeball our sync point if we want. We can just put an endpoint on, and what that would mean is we would then load all 3 files and put an I or tap the letter I on our keyboard where we want the sync point to start. So you can eyeball it if you want. You can also do an out point. You can choose time code, and then you would create the assignments. You can do sound time code. So these methods are more traditional analog methods. This is what you would do before, I would say, the 90s, really, before the aughts, the 2000s, before the 21st century. This is how we would also sync time code. But now an easy method for most of us is audio, and I just use track channel 1. You might, when going forward, especially if you're using clips of various lengths and various sources, we've noticed that you might have some issues with some of the audio, so you could even do 1, 2, or create a mix down. And again, what this is going to do is this is just a sync point. So it's going to look at all of the files and then figure it out on its own. But track channel 1 is usually the easiest because most audio sources come from a track channel 1. Sequence preset, we leave on automatic. We're not going to make any changes here. That's fine. We don't have to worry about offset. We leave this checked off, move source clips to process clip spin. I like leaving that alone. For now, in terms of the audio, when we're going to be looking at the source audio, here's camera 1. I recommend choosing camera 1. However, you can decide to choose all the cameras, which means it's going to play all 3 at the same time. This usually requires you to go back and mix it later, or you can do switch audio. Now, this is useful if you're doing an interview and maybe you have your microphones attached directly to the cameras. So if you have that, let's say you have 2 cameras and you have camera A and camera B, and then you have a microphone attached to camera A for let's say your interviewer, and camera B has a microphone attached to camera B for your interviewee. And if you're cutting back and forth, it doesn't make sense to get all the audio from one source or the other source. In that case, you'd want it to switch, right? Because the microphone is going to a separate camera. So if you switch to camera B, you want the microphone that's attached to camera B. This is why you would choose switch audio. Otherwise, like for us, we're just going to do camera 1 because I want just one soundtrack to be standard. And this also requires for you to have already gone through and looked at your footage and made this decision. So remember, all of this is going to imply or suggest or assume that you have already gone through your footage and made certain decisions already in terms of where the source comes from. And why do we make that assumption? Because this is intermediate/advanced editing, and this is something you should already be doing. Leave the enumerate cameras alone, that's fine. Once you've done all this, this is pretty much it. You can choose OK. And now Premiere is going to analyze the audio waveforms. So it's looking at the little jaggedy, right? The way that the audio goes up and down, and sync them up. Mileage will vary depending on your performance, your RAM in your computer, and your video card. So mine is pretty quick. I do have a pretty new MacBook Pro though, so yours might not be as quick. Just know that if it's taking a little longer, that's perfectly fine. And also know that if you're using video that's at a higher resolution, it also may take a bit longer. We are using standard definition files, so it's able, Premiere is able to go through it quickly. And also, these aren't long files. I think the longest one will be about 6 to 8 minutes, somewhere in there. So we're not talking about a 30-minute interview. We're talking about a less than 10-minute video file here. Let's see what it made. So now we have, I'm going to full screen this. We can just focus on this. Let's zoom in a little bit. Here we go. All right, I'll just remember I'm using this guy to zoom. So here's our base video folder. Notice that we did get a video or a folder, another bin created called process clips, and we open that up. Here's where our video files went inside. We don't have to mess with those. We can leave those alone. And we also have our cam here, clips. I'm going to show you something too. Again, I'm suggesting and or again, assuming that you've gone through your video files, and it's very important because there are certain decisions you might want to make before you get into your break or your editing. You're actually editing where you're switching your files back and forth. And in this case, for example, and I'm going to require that of you from your demo or the one that you turn into me, is when we shot this, the person that I was working with had failed to make a adjustment on the support rods because he was doing a handheld shooting, and the support rods underneath the camera are visible at the bottom, and so it's a problem of scaling at this point, but not necessarily scaling because we don't want to scale anything because when we do a scale inside of Premiere, especially if we do from like 4K to 1080, if you scale it, it's going to resize it. And we don't want to rescale it. We just want to set the frame size. And when we set the frame size, what it does is it's going to change the size of it, but maintain its original proportion. So if you bring in a 4K project and you set it up to set the frame size to a 1080 sequence, what it means is it's going to shrink down the 4K so that it fits in the 1080, even though it still has its 4K. So it's going to start to crop out sections. It's like it's a digital zoom at that point. But what's the beauty of doing the set to frame is that the settings for the 4K will still be there, and you can just move your main image around. It becomes very, very, very useful. So a 4K project or a 4K image that you shoot, you can actually focus on different sections of it in a 1080, and the resolution will be great because again it's 2 to 3 times the size of a 1080, especially if you're going 2K 4K or 6K 8K with only shooting with one camera. So it'll allow you to fake your coverage in that sense. So something to keep in mind also if you're looking at ways to make your productions look bigger or grander than they really are. All right, so I hit tilde, again, that little button underneath my escape key to remove my zoom. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm suggesting that we know what our image looks like. Here, and I'll tell you why in just a second. So once I've created the multicam source, now I'm going to create a sequence from that source. And notice I get this new icon here. And this new icon has video, audio, but notice that the video layers, it's got at least 2 to indicate that this is a multicam source file. Now from here, I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to create my multicam from this. So go over here and notice I can create, just like before, right in the middle, new sequence from clip. And I can either right click and do that. I can drag this down to this right here, this right next to the trash can. And if I do that, it'll create my sequence, or I can just drag and drop it over here into the timeline, and it'll also create my sequence. So once I've done this, Now what I'm going to want to do is manipulate my my screen so I can take advantage of my multicam editing. So now we're going to get into how do I manipulate Premiere Pro and create a workspace. Because if I look at my different workspaces here, remember I got learning, assembly, editing, color, effects, audio, graphics, libraries, and I click on the double arrow. I have all panels, meta logging, and production. So I don't necessarily have my workspace yet. I have to generate that. So the easiest way to do that is we go to editing. We're going to use editing as a base. And from editing, one thing we'll do immediately is like, let's move this over. And notice that it's all blank right now. The yellow here bar, notice that it's a different one. I don't think we've seen yellow yet. We've seen reds, we've seen greens. You may have seen some purples or other colors. I'm probably thinking purple because of Final Cut Pro, but but we definitely have seen reds and greens. Yellow is to indicate where the multicam starts. And if you notice the yellow, if we draw a line, here's our waveform because that's what Premiere used to create that sync point. There's a waveform here. See, yellow starts. And then where the yellow ends, there's where the waveform ends as well. So this will give us a really, really good clue as to where our multicam starts. So I can drag this over. I should have nothing. And then, boom, there it is. Here's where it started. So right away, what I could do is make sure that my selection here or my file, all my stuff is linked. So make sure that's blue. So it's all linked. And I could just trim this right away. At least go to here, you know, and if I trim that, I mean, I'm not going to lose anything because again, there was nothing. I'll right click and I'll do a ripple delete so I can slam that all the way at the beginning. Now, those of you that might want to do titles, again, you might want to keep a little space. It's not going to affect your editing in any way because here's where you can put your titles. Remember, you can move this. And this is also what's nice about doing this multicam is that I can move the one source file here. It's going to have all 3 video files inside of it already, and all my audio files are all kind of compressed. But if we notice it's green to indicate that it's a sequence with something inside of it and special. This green color will also be the color of a sequence that's inside of another sequence or a nested sequence. We're going to look at nested sequences in more detail on the next demo when we look at keyframe editing and animation. So be aware that that's what that green means. And again, for now, we can leave this blank space, especially if we want to create titles or an intro of some kind. So we can start planning ahead now with that if we want, especially if we know this is going to be our main attention or the source of our attention when we edit. So again, you can start pre-planning that kind of stuff right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So I don't need to have any set points. Everything's already been synchronized. All right, notice when I'm here, I can only see my one file. And if I push play, I can see that, well, I'm not at the point where I want to be just yet because I have someone speaking. And like, again, also, like, I thought this was a multicam. Do I double click it? And if I double click it, I'm like, oh, I see something over here. But how do I get that so I can edit? We do have to do we still have a few things we have to do. First thing we do is, I'm going to do this in this order so that, again, we can optimize some of the things we're going to do over here, but we can shrink this down because we're not going to use source really. We are going to use it to do one adjustment, but for the multicam, overall, we're not going to use it. So we shrink source, so we get program kind of filling up the screen. Then we go over here to program, and we're going to make a button down here. And these, because this is where we have, for Premiere, we put a multicam button in our little players right here. So we got to go to the plus button here, the button editor, hit the plus, and we look for multicam, which is this guy right here. And we're going to drag and drop that. And I'm going to put it right next to right here because I put it underneath. Premiere used to actually make room. It doesn't anymore, or what I've noticed, it hasn't. So I'm going to put it on up here on the right side. And then I'm just going to click OK. So here's my multicam, and I got to toggle that so I can view my other video streams. If I'm in Premiere Pro, or if I'm in Final Cut Pro, for example, there's a little button up here that I click on that says view additional streams. So it's, again, they're all going to be different. And in Premiere Pro, we just have to make the button. So now when I click this, boom, there it is. It automatically shows me all my streams. And when I'm looking at this right now, you might notice in this and say, wait a minute, I only see 1, 2. I thought there were 3. That's right, there are 3. But we didn't. The third camera wasn't recording till closer or to the actual event. So if I drag my playhead and I move forward, I'm going to see there it is. It appears. And here's what's kind of neat. So you notice I can see that everything's in sync. I'll push play. So there we go. We can see that it's all in sync and it's working. What I also want you to see here in this particular project, well, one, yes, the quality is kind of blown out a little bit. Because we were shooting on a day where it was an overcast day, I remember, and man, the sun was going in and out, in and out. It was rough. The ISO was all over the place. That happens. We can see the sun was coming through in this side, but then if we look at this shot over here, we were under a shady spot, and then even here too. Colors are a little bit different. It's one of those things that might happen. But more importantly, what I want to fix here, if I'm looking at this, is these are the support bars. Again, underneath, the roll bars underneath, where it's peeking out from underneath. Again, they weren't pushed back when we set it all up. So we're going to have to do a quick little effect scale. And what I would suggest is that you do the scale before you start doing your editing, because once we start editing, Premiere Pro is going to handle each of the cuts as individual sections. And when I do a manipulation on one of the clips after it's already been cut, it's only going to do the manipulation on that one part, because it assumes like, well, you might want to do a fix on this one section, but not the rest. And it'll treat it as an independent clip. That's not to say that you can't, do some kind of adjustment on one clip. But what you'll have to do is copy and paste the effect and put it on the other clip, the way you would traditionally do it, and the way we've done it in the other demos. But in this case, before we start our editing, what you're going to do, what I would suggest is we do this particular scale before, because it's just a lot easier to make that adjustment. So in this case, to make this adjustment, I will need the source. So I am going to open this up a little bit in this case. And what I'm going to do is double click this guy. And if I double click this, it puts it in my source window. Again, remember, anything I double click will always appear in source window. So with this already selected, what I'm going to do is go into my effect control. And with effect control, this is typically the way it looks. I'll just show you guys when we're editing. Like this, everything will probably be collapsed. And you'll see my video, my audio, right? So I'm going to open up my motion, and here's my scale. And notice what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up. There we go. It's starting to I can shrink it if I pull down, or if I pull up, make it go away. There we go. And now it's gone. And I'm just eyeballing it in this case. I'm not really going to be precious. But for you guys can be precious. I'll let you guys do all that. And now when I go forward, I'll see that it's all zoomed in. But just be aware that when I zoom in, notice here's the original one with the bars. The person filming this was doing their compositions for this kind of a shot. But now here's what it looks like. So some things might be cropped a little tight. So just know that might be the case. So even though it's original here, here's what it's going to look like. So I've done what I need to do, but we just have to be aware again of our scaling. So I would suggest if you do the scaling, you might want to preview, watch it all in real time and make sure it fits your needs, and make adjustments as necessary. And like, okay, I think this is Maybe I want to do more, so I would open it up and I scale up even more, or I scale less. Either way, I go up and I go down. All right, so I can even go back to this if I want. Either way, it's saved. I don't have to do anything after that. But I get rid of source because I'm done with source, and I can start working now in my multicam edit. Now, before I continue, because we're talking about saving this as a multicam workspace, I can now create one. So I'm going to go up here into my buttons here, or actually go up here. Let's see, markers, window, and I'm going to do workspaces and then do save as new workspace. So now I'm going to go in here and call it multi-cam, something like that, and click OK. And now if I look at my top, I have multicam. Again, this will be very useful because if I go to editing here, you'll see like, wow, editing exactly like multicam. Why would I want to do all this work and now I've ruined editing? And say, don't worry, you haven't ruined editing. You just go to window, go to workspace, and then we just go to reset to save layout. And there we go. Now we're back into the regular editing workspace where I have, I'll turn this off so you can see. Here we go, just a regular screen, source and program, the way that we recognize it. Again, the advantage of this being that I don't ruin any of my work here or any of my spaces. And if I go to multicam, this is exactly what we just did. We just fixed it, and I turn it on and turn it off. And there it is. Now it's turned on just like before. So, and I have it saved. Now, again, going forward, until I reset or until I decide to delete it, or again, I have a new account or something. So there it is, my multicam. Okay, now in my case, I feel like I might want to get rid of this guy. So I'm going to get rid of him. I don't need him. And again, remember, I can zoom in by moving these bars, and I can even see the waveform where it dips. I'm going to trim this all the way to that as well, because I don't need all that stuff. I'm going to move this over. Again, so saying before, I might want to give myself a little bit of room because I want, put some titles here. So there we go. I'll go to about 12. Let's go here. And now I can start editing. So here's my camera one, and they're numbered. They're 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So those numbers will correspond to the numbers on your keyboard at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see you have all the way to 0. If you look up the help on Adobe Premiere, it'll show you how to get more than what you have on your number, because you can have support on as of 2019. I know it was 16. I'd have to look and do the research on 2020, or I'll have one of you all do the research. Let me know what the top end limit is for multicam editing going forward. Which again, it could be more than 16, and it also could be depending on your video card and your available RAM. So the way we edit, we push play. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually lower the volume because it's kind of loud for me because I can't really hear. And notice that I still would need to do some audio editing, but because I'm focusing on that one audio source, I just have to do the one bit of editing on this particular line here. Just like last week, we can do all the same types of adjustments. All right, so here's number 1. But let's say I want to jump to number 2. I'll hit the number 2. Now following my guy, and now I cut to number 3. Lower the volume on this a little bit. So notice there is a red box now that's circling around the areas that the red is to indicate when a cut is occurring. And what I want to show you too is what I'm doing is I'm focusing on my smaller windows. I'm not looking at the big ones so much, but anytime I see some new information, that's when I'm cutting. Anytime I think I see something new in those smaller windows, like, oh, this is very interesting. And now we're getting people walking in, so there we go. It makes it so that I can use now strategic setups on my cameras to create sort of revelations and create some really interesting shots. See, now I can create some really cool shots. And I'm gonna pause right here. And what I want you also to notice is the whole time I was making those cuts, there was nothing happening down here, nothing, okay? Nothing was happening. You couldn't see these cuts. They only appear when I stop, when I tap the letter K, or I hit my space bar, or I hit here, the pause button, to stop my playback. But it recorded all of my edits. Just to show this to you guys. There we go, and it recorded all my edits. And remember, we're talking about nonlinear editing, working digitally. These edits are not set in stone. We can go in and adjust those edits and even remove edits if we want. So again, we're not done. And again, what I can do is I can zoom in here so I can look at my edits and then start to get more precious. So the suggestion here is that you can start making edits that may not be exactly what you want yet, but once you're done with the whole thing, you go back and then now you fine tune it. Okay. And how do we do that? So we use our tool set over here. And we can do keyboard commands, or we can just do drag and drop. So how do we make some edits? So for example, let's say maybe I want to remove one of these edits. I can go in here and right click on any one of them. And I could even, or one way I could even remove it, I could just change it. So let's say like here when I'm moving my playhead over the different clips, notice that the yellow over here will change to indicate what clip I'm looking at. If I'm here and I'm like, okay, it goes from clip 1 to clip 3. Let's say, well, I want this to be clip 1 as well here. So I can just tap number 1. And now it's just one long clip. And if I right click on it, I can do what's called join through edit. Boom. And by doing that, notice I've removed the line. Okay, I've removed the line. If you want to see what I did, just rewind and you can follow along. So again, that's a join through edit. But let's say that I want to actually cut, I wanted to cut actually a little sooner. So I can either undo this, Command Z, and then I get my cut back. I'm going to remove that though, because I'm going to show you, like, let's say I want to make a cut. Notice though, if I try to press a button like before, what happens is like, it didn't make a cut. It just changed the entire clip. Like, okay, I don't want to do that. I actually want to make a cut. But let's say that I do want to cut to number 2. Here. Or maybe, let's say I want this to be number 2 because I liked, or maybe I want that to be number 3 actually. Let's make it number 3. And then because she was blocking my shot at the beginning, and again, I'm watching over here and I see she moves over. And at that point, I want to cut when he's revealed. There we go. That's pretty good right there. And now I want to cut to it. But remember, if I hit 1 now, the whole thing changes. All of it changed. It didn't make a cut. It just changed the entire clip. I don't want that. I want to make a cut. So how do I make the cut? Well, I have to do a shortcut. And then I have to do what's called control, and then I put the number. So I do control 1, and now, let's do it again. There we go. It didn't hit. When I do control 1, now it makes the cut. And this is what I'm fine tuning. Okay, again, now I can fine tune any one of these and make a cut to any clip I want as long as I do control 1. Okay, now that'll be true from any one of these. Control 1, Control 2, Control 3. This is after when I'm not playing the multicam. If I do play, like let's say I stopped here. Let's say I decided to stop because something happened, crying baby. I had a cat poop on the floor, which actually I have right now, and I have to go clean it. I can pause. I don't have to make all my edits now. I can continue, and I can go back. And once I go back to my play mode, notice that it turned red when I hit my first button. Pause. See? And when I pause, they come back. Okay. So I can continue to make those cuts, but I have to play, I have to push play first. Okay. So that's the difference. And the way I was pushing play is I was doing my JKL on my keyboard. So it doesn't matter how you do it. Just start pushing play, and you can start hitting your cameras, your camera angles, and they will cut as long as it's playing. Remember, you're not going to see the cuts until after you pause your playback. So it's what it's also doing is pausing the recording of your cuts. Remember, when you're in this mode, you have to hit Control and then the angle to make a cut. But let's say we just want to fine tune it. Like right here, maybe you want to scoot this over a little bit. Like we say, I don't want the cut here, I want it over here. Do I have to go through all that process? No, we don't. What we do is you go to the third one right here, and we go to what's called the ripple edit. And the ripple edit, it's not the one we're going to use. We're going to use what's called a rolling edit tool. And we can see the shortcut is the letter N. So we can just press the letter N if we want. And now we have a bar with 2 arrows on it. Notice when I come down to the lines, it becomes active. And what's really cool about this technique is I select the bar, or I select the edit point that I want to move. And because this is a rolling edit, it's going to roll the edit point to the new area. It's not going to add time or remove time. It's just going to move where the edit occurred. So let's zoom in so you can see this. So let's say I actually wanted to, let's see, here it's playing. And maybe I wanted to cut it a little sooner where she's already in some position up here. I don't want to see her, I mean, you know, because if I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, actually she's not moving as much if I go over here. And all I need to do is drag and move it over like that. See, and I just rolled it over. And now she's walking, and that edit actually occurs now over here. Let's put it back so you can see that. I want to roll it back, just drag and drop, boom, there we go. Or for those of you that like the shortcuts, and here's something I like. This is the way I like to do it. I like to push play sometimes, and like, oh, that's where I want it. I hit pause, and then all I got to do is tap the letter E, and it'll automatically move that edit point. So I either drag it over or I tap the letter E to make that edit point happen. There we go. And that'll happen anywhere. The key is I just select the edit point so I can tell, I want this right here. So I can tell Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro that I want it to ripple or to roll over, not ripple, excuse me. This is the roll edit. Just keep this in mind. Hold on 1 second, everyone. I'll be right back. There's poop, just to let you know he pooped. Probably has poop on his butt. Okay, sorry, I'm back. So again, just the roll edit, drag and drop, or let me move over, letter E. Boom. And again, it's not moving the audio also. It's only doing the clip. I'll get this, don't worry about that. It's only doing the clip. Very, very useful technique, especially when you're trying to get your cut exactly. So this will allow you to get your cut exactly where you want it to go and what you want it to be, okay? And this is where you can get very, very precious, if you would, very precious. Now, keep in mind too, as I mentioned earlier, that this is where, with the clips being cut the way they are, I'm gonna go back to my pointer. Each clip now, if I manipulate it, will be a treated like its own individual clip. So if I scale the clip, if I do a color correction on a clip, if I do anything at all, any effect, it's only going to apply to the one clip here. So keep that in mind. However, if that one clip in the source is the same, so like here I have a blown out image. In this case, I probably would correct everything independently because the lighting was bad and changing on each one. It's going to be more work, but sometimes that's the case. What you can do is you can copy and paste whatever manipulation you did or any effect you added to the clip to any other ones. So I'll turn this off, or actually I'm gonna leave it on because I don't have to turn it off because now I just have my workspace all done. And when I click on any clip, for example, I double click one, even though I see it here in the workspace, it's gonna apply whatever I'm doing in my effects only to the one clip. So for example, I'm loading this one, go to my effect control. Let me reset this guy. See, there we go. I don't have any problems here. Effect control, I can go in and even, I can move the position if I want, as an example. Let's see, and the way I would want to look at this is I'll turn off my multicam because I just want to see, again, this is the way I would normally work if I was not working a multicam. So I can even manipulate this stuff however I want, again, as if we were editing without any of the additional extra video sources. One thing I also recommend when you're doing multicam editing and making these changes, let's go back to that. Turn this back on, is you'll want to change your scaling and maybe go to a quarter editing. It just makes it easier. It'll be smoother playback. So let's go back here. I'll just show you. The resolution is going to drop way down. I was going to actually show that to you guys earlier. And here are my clips again. Okay, but the clips themselves, they when you start doing your manipulations and your effects, you want to do them at the very end, though. Keep that in mind. You'll want to do those at the very, very end. Okay. And then remember, this is just the scale. Just makes it easier when we're doing that. Let's go back to editing and let's turn that off. Okay. All right, let's go back to full. There we go. Now it'll look the way it should, as opposed to, let's go to quarter. Actually, it went away, yeah, because we're not in that environment. But there it is, again, scale down. See, it's only in the, when you're editing that it looks as bad as it does. But when you get to your color correction, I mean, you can go back to full. So another very useful technique that you can use when you're if you again optimizing your performance. Let me see if there's anything else we need to do here. Yeah, just that that roll edit's very, very useful. Okay, so do that. Now for this particular project, remember I do want you to do 2 files. So look at the project 3 requirements, because I did put in there, I did want 2. I wanted one that was a straight cut, and I wanted one that was a for you, experimental. And now on that second one, you can do anything you want. You can create any kind of file. You can use any kind of video. And because I believe you can do multicam editing now on some of those stock footage sites that I gave you guys. Just do a search for multicam. If not, don't worry about it. Or if you want to experiment with it and do your own versions, you can do that using any smartphone or any DSLR camera or any combination of those. In fact, this particular project, like I was saying, was shot on 3 different types of cameras and 2 different brands even. So again, you can mix and match all you want. Just remember, when you're doing that, the key to multicam shooting is to make sure you are recording audio on all your devices. because that's how we're going to create the sync point. Okay, that's how we're going to create the syncing. Okay. Please contact me with questions. I think that's it for the demo for today. Turn that off. So I hope you all have a productive week. And again, as always, let me know if you have questions, and we'll talk soon, and I'll see you on Labs. Have a productive week, everyone.